What's going on, everybody? Welcome to PFF's live Super Bowl show here on Super Bowl Sunday in the beautiful Western and Southern studio. So glad that you guys are here hanging out with us, getting you guys ready for the final game of the NFL season. Trevor Sikkema here with me on the desk, as always. For the final time this year, we got Sam Monson, Ian Hartitz, and Eric Eager. Fellas, last show can't hold anything back, as Ian referenced from Waterboy a couple of minutes ago. How are we feeling on this Super Bowl Sunday?
Feeling good. Last game of the season, but the NFL season never stops, right? Then we're into free agency, then we're into the draft. We're going to go.
It's true. There are seasons of the NFL season. It's almost just like the calendar. We are in Cincinnati. Do you guys feel the magic? Do you feel the power?
Our own Austin Gale, our intrepid reporter downtown at the bank.
That's a good way to say he's already at the bar 6.5 hours
Yeah,
early.
I mean, he says it's buzzing. I believe him. I drove by. I have a 40-minute drive to work. A lot of Who Day signs. A lot of Who Day signs. A lot of Go Bengals signs. And look, they deserve it. I mean, the last time we did this live show, the Bengals had yet to win a road playoff game in the history of their franchise, and now here they are.
And now,
let's have fun with it.
And now here they are, including, winning over your Kansas City Chiefs. But I won't bring that up on the show, because I won't do that to you. Ian, do you have any Super Bowl, food or party traditions? Is there, a go-to thing that you're going for, something you got to have today?
I'm like any guy. I just want my buffalo wings, and I'll move on. It's a shame Josh Allen isn't here. Or is it a shame? I shouldn't say that.
Literally, in this economy with chicken wings, I can't even imagine. We also have Kendall Valenzuela with us. She's checking out every comment and every reply that you guys are sending off in the YouTube chat. Kendall, do you have any, or is there any Super Bowl traditions that you have with food, anything like that?
I have to go. I've already pre-placed an order. I'm hoping at knockbacks. So gotta have the wings. Gotta have the wings. But it's the first Super Bowl. The last 5 have either been Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes. No offense, Derek. So I feel like today is just a great day, no matter what.
Knockback's truly the best wings that I've had in Cincinnati, but it's also, as everybody knows, it's just such a small wing place. So you are going for gold. You are swinging for the fences. I respect you for it. I'm probably going to get denied, so I might ask you to save me one. Guys, Derek mentioned this, how the Bengals got here. It's kind of crazy because it feels like it wasn't very long ago. We had a Contenders Pretenders segment on this show in the middle of the season, and I'm pretty sure the Bengals are one of the teams we brought up, and either we were split or there were certainly people who were like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah,
and yet, here they are.
Remember at one point during the season, they had the number 1 seed in the AFC, and it was yeah, but
They had the easiest schedule in the league and the hardest schedule moving forward.
And we expected them to fall away, and they did, but they bounced back. They kind of got into the playoffs, and everyone was sort of, yeah, well done. Good for Cincinnati. They made the playoffs. It's an impressive achievement. And Joe Burrow was the one saying, this is nothing. We're here to go on a run. We're not just happy with making the postseason.
They were the first team in the postseason to win a game, right? It was that Saturday afternoon. They had the 4 o'clock game. They won. And there were teams that had yet to play in that divisional round who had much better Super Bowl odds than them, even though they had a game in the bag already.
Right,
so, a lot of doubt there for the Bengals. I think understandably so. I mean, they're a team that while they have taken down some good teams, right, the Chiefs twice, the Ravens twice, the Steelers twice, they also lost to the Jets, right? They had some games and they got blown out by the Chargers.
The competitive Jets, though.
They were competitive, So it's been an odd season for them, but good for them. I mean, them and the Rams. Let's not forget about the Rams. Have really taken advantage of a season where there wasn't an elite team, right? You talk about Buffalo and Green Bay; those might have been the only 2 teams that qualified as truly elite, and so these teams took advantage of a league that was weaker this year.
To be fair to the Bengals, though, I think after seeing the Ravens and the Chiefs at the end of the regular season, if we were going to predict a Bengals Super Bowl run, what were we going to say? Burrow going bonkers for a month straight. That really hasn't been the case. He has been fine, but when's the last time they scored 30 points other than they get there in the Chiefs game?
Yeah, he certainly has not been like this lights out. In the regular season, he led the league in completion percentage and yards per attempt, which is really hard to do. He had the highest PFF passing grade among all members of the NFL. He's 3rd in PFF WAR, 2nd in PFF WAR. I forget whether he overtook Herbert recently. But in the playoffs, Stafford's been the better quarterback, and in fact, he might have been outplayed, in a few at times by the guys he's played against in the playoffs as well. So it's been an interesting run for them. Defense deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're going to get to plenty of matchups. We're going to break down everything. Sean McVay, Zach Taylor. We're going to talk about Jamar Chase, Jalen Ramsey, just overall offense versus defense with these teams. Of course, with Eric here on the desk with us, you know that for the biggest game, we're going to give you his best bets and the biggest bets at that. So we're going to be littering in some betting advice to you throughout the show, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But before we really dive into this game, because there's plenty of talk about that, we did have the NFL awards that recently came out. And there's been a lot of talk here on this desk of, during the middle of the season or just wherever it is, we always give our predictions. Who's going to win MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. And now we have who actually came away with the awards. At MVP, it was Aaron Rodgers. Offensive Player of the Year, Cooper Kupp. Defensive Player of the Year, TJ Watt. Rookie of the Years, we had Jamar Chase, Michael Parsons. I don't think there was a surprise there. Comeback player, Joe Burrow here in the Super Bowl, obviously. Coach of the Year, it ended up going to Mike Vrabel, and I think pretty much a landslide when I was looking at those numbers. And then Walter Payton, Man of the Year, Andrew Whitworth. What do you guys think about the players that actually won there? Any major surprises from you? I feel like maybe, you mentioned, Sam, I got a out of you when I said Vrabel winning as highly as he did with that Coach of the Year. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, that was my only real surprise. Not that Vrabel won it, because I think there's a perfectly good case that he did. That the Titans team, I don't think, was a phenomenal group. They kept winning those incredible games. So they had that run of 5-6 games in the middle where they were stacking back-to-back victories against good teams despite being pretty injury depleted. And the injuries are the big story, right? No Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown missing for a chunk of time, Julio Jones, not really Julio, the entire defense missing guys at period. So I think Vrabel has a really good case and might have been where my vote went, but I was really surprised by how conclusive it was. And in particular, he had 40 votes, I think. Zach Taylor had, I think, 2. Yeah. I was expecting Zach Taylor. Honestly, I was expecting him to win just because of the way these awards go. But certainly the gap between the two being that large.
Well, I think the only thing, so with Taylor, they were voted for right after the regular season. I think if you put the playoffs
Why do we do that?
Yeah,
I don't understand, man. I don't understand. It's not like we're sending them by carrier pigeon. You're emailing them, you're texting them, you're doing something.
Particularly when they have to wait to the week before the Super Bowl to have the award show anyway.
It's awkward, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think if you go playoffs, Zach Taylor's probably in there. Especially considering what happened in the game between the Titans and the Bengals, where I don't think necessarily Vrabel was the one who let the Titans down, but Todd Downing and the offensive coordinator, that was a game plan that was really first guess. Oh my God, they're going to give the ball too much to Derrick Henry, who's got a metal plate in his foot, and he doesn't look explosive. And Derrick Henry's a slow starter in seasons to begin with, so you could make a case that he would have been bad in that game, and they did it. And that was really the only reason the Bengals, who are now here today, were left in that game despite giving up 9 sacks, was Tennessee, in addition to turning the ball over in the passing game, was just giving the ball to Derrick Henry at 1 or 2 yards a clip, and were unable to take advantage of the Bengals struggling offensively. And the thing about Zach Taylor, which is interesting, is he's kind of let other teams fail in front of him. I don't think he's been great. I think his best trait is that he gives Joe Burrow, who's comeback player of the year. I think Joe Burrow deserves a little bit more consideration for something like MVP, especially if it's just a regular season award. But what Zach Taylor does is he lets Andy Reid give up an 18-point lead in the playoffs for the 3rd time in his career. He lets the Titans self-destruct. And then we even go back to the Raiders game because we were all there. He lets Derek Carr spike the ball on 1st and 10 with 30 seconds left as opposed to taking 4 shots at the end zone. And so we wonder about this game coming up today. Does he let Sean McVay do some of the Sean McVay things like call too many timeouts or challenge too many plays?
Just get the ball in the fairway. Watch the other guy throw it out.
And that might be the way to coach football, is just to not make mistakes, right? Especially when you have transcendent talents like Joe Burrow on your team, Jamar Chase, guys like that. It's just to not make the crucial mistakes. And so I agree. I think Vrabel did the most impressive job during the season, getting that team to a 1 seed without a ton of talent, with a new offensive coordinator, all that kind of stuff. But I think on the balance of the season, I think Zach Taylor should have won it.
What about the rest of this group? Anything really stand out? Did they get it right? I know we were big fans of Tom Brady's MVP case here, but even outside of Brady, with the other guys that are there, the comeback player of the year, offensive and defensive rookie, I don't think there's going to be a lot of disagreement there. But any disagreement anywhere?
I think MVP is the only one we would argue with, and defensive player of the year. Again, those were ones we expected to go the way that they went, but Tom Brady wins MVP when you start to factor in volume and the way that offense functioned through Brady relative to the way the Packers offense functions through Aaron Rodgers, which is to say they limit how much they expect Rodgers to do, and they're much more willing and they want other players to pick up some of that load. Whereas Brady, was leading the league in terms of just how much he was putting the ball in the air at 44 years old,
right,
throwing it downfield. Like, that offense was Tom Brady. He, I think, is a clear MVP. And then Defensive Player of the Year with TJ Watt, that was secured the second he was going anywhere near the sack record. And it was a really impressive season from him. But for Aaron Donald to get overlooked, I think speaks to just the problem with these awards, which is we just get bored of giving the award to Aaron Donald. Yeah. Aaron Donald has been the best defensive player in the NFL since 2015 every year.
Right.
And we just stopped giving him the award because it looks silly.
Well, it's crazy because the Steelers went 9-7-1. They made the playoffs. They had a winning season. Still no losing seasons under Tomlin. I think that was one of the big reasons, right? You look at that team, Ben Roethlisberger has a terrible year, goes into retirement. The offense is kind of bad. They have a tough schedule playing in that AFC North, and they still make the playoffs. And TJ Watt gets near the sack record. All of those narratives add up to that thing making sense from like a public perspective. But from my perspective, I think like Cam Hayward was just as good as TJ Watt this year as far as impact on that defense, second most valuable interior player. And here's where it catches up to me. Cam Hayward was the second most valuable interior player this year, 0.4 wins above replacement. Aaron Donald has over a win above replacement. He's more twice as valuable as the next best player on his team and the most valuable non-quarterback in the NFL. So when we talk about outliers, he's just there. To talk about Offensive Player of the Year, this is where I think the playoffs make a difference. I think if you add playoffs into it, Kupp is the right choice because of the sort of like running up the score he's done since January. But for the regular season, I do think Trent Williams deserves consideration.
I thought that was a Cordero Patterson twist, but
no, unfortunately, it wasn't. Well, Sam, you filled out our NFL awards here at PFF, and it looks somewhat similar to what the awards actually were given out. But the big ones, obviously, you mentioned Aaron Donald was your Defensive Player of the Year. Tom Brady, you mentioned his case for MVP. Eric, you just brought up Trent Williams, and my question to you, Sam, is that I think a lot of people really respect Trent Williams, and I think that he was able to get a lot of publicity this year for a lot of these highlight erasing blocks. Is there any way to get offensive linemen more love for an award like Offensive Player of the Year, or is it just kind of we are where we are right now?
I mean, it's going to take some real time. Like, there's no reason that Trent Williams shouldn't have won Offensive Player of the Year this year, other than we simply don't treat offensive line the same way we treat positions where there are yards attached to their name.
Marketable, right?
Yeah, like there are box score numbers that make it very easy to draw a straight line between the performance a quarterback does or a receiver does and where that lies relative to everybody else, right? This guy had more yards, more catches, more touchdowns, therefore he deserves an award. There's no number that's easy to attach to Trent Williams like that. You can look at pressure given up and sacks given up, but those are a little bit harder to come by for the average fan or the average guy voting on this award. Other than that, you have to actually look at the tape and watch how he's doing relative to everybody else, which takes a lot of time, and most of these guys aren't doing, right? When you look at some of the ballots that come in, it's very obvious that some of these guys simply are not watching the game, which is why you get these kind of hometown votes, right? Where some guy has one vote because that beat writer voted for him, right? And Trent Williams this year was playing at a different level to any offensive lineman we have seen in 15 years worth of play. His pass protection numbers are good, but his run blocking, as you mentioned, was on a completely different level to anything else. That dude would just simply take a defender, that's my guy, delete, gone, not in the blocking play anymore, right? You no longer exist in this play. And that creates these massive running lanes. So Deebo Samuel or whoever the running back is just wanders through this open space that Trent Williams has created by taking his guy and erasing him from the defensive play.
And, we have Heisman moments in college football. Not quite the same thing in the NFL, but my God, when he went in motion and just plowed through the entire city of Green Bay,
man.
Like that should have been his Offensive Player of the Year moment.
Yeah, but do we look at this, and I think that separation is a key thing. Like, when you look at wins above replacement, you look at any sort of statistic, Williams above the next tackles, just, that. But Cooper Kupp was putting up numbers that I mean, we were talking about it from a fantasy perspective. We're just in an era now where a lot of wide receivers do great things, and he has to sort of compete with Devontae Adams for attention. He's got to compete with Deebo Samuel for attention. Deebo Samuel had 1,400 yards receiving in the regular season and 8 rushing touchdowns. Like, it's just a different world. But I think that, like, it makes us lose sight of the fact that Cooper Kupp was, very much a historically good wide receiver this year, and has kept, and this doesn't matter for the award, but kept it going through the playoffs.
But I think that separation is an important point, right? As good as Cooper Kupp was, and yes, it's in that historical range of record setting, but the gap between him and everyone else, like 3 other guys are pretty close to record setting at that position. Whereas Trent Williams, it's the highest PFF grade we've ever given to an offensive tackle. The previous 2 are getting on for a decade ago, and they both belong to either a Hall of Famer, Jonathan Ogden, or a future Hall of Famer, Joe Thomas. So the separation between Trent Williams and anybody else right now is monstrous, like Aaron Donald, being the best defensive player, and the gap between him and anybody else in terms of PFF WAR is massive. I agree with Eric. I think that the gap between you and the next guy should be a pretty important part of that whole awards thing.
Let's keep the PFF grade train going and take a look at the top 10 players that we have in this game, in the Super Bowl. Now, you're going to see some repeat names, some names that we saw on the NFL Honors Awards list. Aaron Donald there at the very top. We got Joe Burrow right behind him, Cooper Kupp. Those 3 guys, obviously, we're going to say a lot of words about here. Jalen Ramsey, Matt Stafford, Jamar Chase, Andrew Whitworth, Von Miller, T. Higgins, Bob Havenstein. I mean, this list is filled with names to know. Names that have either been given awards this year for this season or have had awards that they have won in the past. This is a decorated group. For as much as I think we could sit here and even at the top of the show, we mentioned like, oh man, Rams versus Bengals. We didn't really predict this one. These guys are having fantastic seasons, and they've got a lot of star names. So I feel like that definitely goes into what we are looking at here, is that these are 2 very star-studded teams.
Exactly, and that's the thing where we've all, and I'm guilty of this as anybody who doubted the Rams, right, where like it's a very stars and scrubs team, right? It's a very putting a ton of resources into a few great players and then trusting scouting, trusting development on the back half of the roster. And when you do that, and we've seen almost every single team that's tried to do this fail, but when you do that, your stars have to be stars. It's much like Tampa Bay last year. When you pay a stars and scrubs sort of environment, the stars have to play that way. And we'll talk about this in a little bit later. But like all of the players that the Rams trusted to be extremely valuable were extremely valuable, and they all come up on that list there. And the folks that the Bengals, the reason the Bengals have such an edge isn't necessarily that they have brilliance across the roster, but they get great bang for their buck with Chase, Higgins, Burrow, and we're seeing that. That's one of basically the reason why they're in it today. The Bengals are 5th in the NFL in wins above replacement generated on offense per dollar spent, and they don't spend a ton of dollars there. And
that's with a high-priced running back.
And that's with a high-priced running back, and that's with a defense where they've spent. That makes up for the fact that their highest cap hit next year is going to be Trey Waynes, a backup defensive back. You're allowed to make mistakes when your great players are cheap.
Have you changed your take at all on all of the Rams' kind of strategy leading up to this, because it's got them to the game and favorites for it?
So my thing is I still wouldn't do it. I still wouldn't do what they did because it's just such a hard need. But I will say this. It causes us to reevaluate some of the thought process we have. So a couple of things I'm reevaluating is their injury rates are really good, and they've been that way for 3-4 years. Is there something that we're just not baking into the cake? Like, we have access to all tons of information, right? So we can kind of reverse engineer what a lot of these teams are doing. But we don't necessarily know the difference in what they're doing with load management and sort of recovery and stuff. They have one big injury all year? There's Robert Woods. So when you play the stars and scrubs thing, you're hoping that the scrubs stay healthy, so you don't have like a negative WAR player playing in their place.
Sure, right.
And then the great players stay healthy. And Kupp, Donald. We even saw in the playoff game last year when Donald had to miss like 25 snaps. The Packers were like, all right, we're moving on to the next round. Like if their stars stay healthy and play the way they're supposed to, then it can be a winning strategy.
Donald played more snaps this year than we've ever seen from an interior defender. Like not only is he playing out of his mind, but he's playing as much as they can possibly get him on the field.
Yeah, so if you try to replicate this, so say like Kansas City does, they put a ton of resources into Frank Clark, and Frank Clark stinks. Well, that's like if that one instance happened to any one of the Rams stars, they're not here, right? But every single star that they've put into, like Von Miller's been great. They put some resource in him. Odell Beckham Jr.'s been great. The cheapness of those two guys, money-wise, makes up for where they distributed the money elsewhere. I mean, this is the biggest cap hit we've ever seen at the quarterback position for a team to make the Super Bowl since the caps existed, right? They had the Goff money and the Stafford money, but they sort of they get around it because their stars have been force multipliers. So that's one thing to look at. The other one is development. Like a lot of their players, Gaines, Fuller, a lot of those guys are lowly drafted guys who have turned into players.
If the Rams win, this game is going to screw up so many of those. You can't win a Super Bowl if you have X tied up in the quarterback position.
Whereas the Bengals
it feels like that's kind of the narrative on both sides, right? I mean, if the Bengals win the Super Bowl, it's basically like, hey, don't pay attention to offensive line, it doesn't matter, right? Like you've got really weird narratives that are safe to say, I mean, this is social media, is just going to go way too far depending on what one of the results are.
And look at the ones we're ruining. 2 number 1 overall picks, or there will be a number 1 overall pick that wins the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
or also we have Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase. Like when Gronk and Zach Ertz are having these big Super Bowls, everyone's like, oh, do you really need a number 1 wide receiver to get there? So football is already such a small sample size as it is, and then we try to take the 56 Super Bowls and make these even more.
Well, and the Rams, if the Rams win, this will be only the 3rd quarterback in the history of the NFL to win a Super Bowl in the first year on his new team. So we had Trent Dilfer in 2000 with the Ravens. That's kind of an outlier because he stinks, but their defense was amazing. And then last year you had Brady. This year you have Stafford. Like, are we gonna? Yeah, as Sam said, I think there's gonna be a lot of teams that are gonna try to replicate what the Rams do, and they don't have the sort of like goods to do it, and there's gonna be some failures there.
Yeah, no, I think that might be the case. All right, we're diving into this game even deeper than we already have, but first, got to tell you guys that PFF is teaming up with Western and Southern, Chris Collinsworth specifically. And whether it's football or financial, you could start your game plan by asking them all sorts of questions. You ever wanted to know some stories of Chris's behind-the-scenes days as a player, or maybe some stories of Sunday Night Football with Al as well? Or maybe, hey, it's financial questions. You're either buying a home, starting a family, something like that, right? You want to know the answers to these questions. Well, now you can have all of these questions answered by going to westernsouthern.com/ask Chris. That is westernsouthern.com/ask Chris. And the cool part is that, especially if you're asking a question to Chris that is football, he'll answer these questions on his podcast, on the Chris Collinsworth podcast. And then if it's a financial question, somebody at Western Southern is going to be able to answer your question there as well, reaching out to you or on their Instagram. Like I said, you can ask all the questions over at westernsouthern.com/ask Chris. With Western Southern, whether it's football or financial, you can rest assured on game day. Let's take a look at the PFF grades, overall grades, offense and defense, for both of these teams as they are going head-to-head here. We've got in ranks the Rams overall power ranking 2nd, Bengals 7th. I think the big glaring part is that defense, right? The Bengals are 20th going up against the Rams that are number 1. So we see unanimous top 6 ranks there from the Rams overall offense, defense. And it's a little less for the Bengals, I think, as we would expect. Anything really stand out to you there that's going to be a big difference maker with the rankings?
The Bengals just have a PFF defense, right? Like they sort of have they got a value in Hendrickson, right? Where all edge players are sort of making that $20 million a year. He's an elite guy at that $16 million mark. And then you look at the secondary. Like you look at, there are a bunch of players who have been okay with other teams, right? So you have Chidobe Awuzie, Eli Apple, Trey Flowers, Ricardo Allen, Von Bell. They even have Vernon Hargreaves, your guy from Tampa Bay. They have all these guys who have played 1,000 snaps, or Mike Hilton have all played 1,000 snaps or more for another NFL franchise, right? And we know how, and we look, it's in our grades, how streaky defensive back play is, right? So you're much less likely, and the Rams are able to do this, but you're much less likely being able to say, these 5 guys are our guys, they need to be great. What the Bengals said is, some subset of these 10 guys have to be good, and it's a much more statistically plausible way to do it, right? And so, yeah, Trey Waynes, for example, he was a big $14 million deal guy. He's probably started, 3-4 games for that team. He's been a bust, but Chidobe Awuzie, Eli Apple have played a lot better than him. Right. And so when you look at this PFF grade, it's 20th. It's sort of like, okay, if you grade each individual player and just kind of add it up, it's not that great, but then the collective ends up being a little bit better. It's also true that they've played an easier schedule of opposing offenses, so that also has benefited them and will not show up necessarily quite as much in our grades. But the Bengals have sort of done it the way we would do it at PFF if we were, sort of in charge.
And they've also, there's a lot of areas where the Bengals have been walking this tightrope throughout the playoffs, right? And they've come down on the right side of it so far. Defense may be ranked 20th overall, but on third downs, they've been really good in the postseason. In the second half against Kansas City, I think they allowed the Chiefs to convert 2 out of 8 third downs or something like that. Every time there was a third down play, that's when Hendrickson dialed up a sack, or that's when they suddenly blanketed everywhere. The Chiefs wanted to go with the ball. Mahomes just dithered and couldn't find anywhere to go. That is huge. Whereas if you look at the NFC Championship game, every time the Rams were in third down, didn't even matter how long it was. Boom, Cooper Kupp, first down, touchdown. They picked up basically every first down that was there. So if the Bengals can do that again, that will erase that 20th next to the defense.
You were talking about the Rams strategy when it came to, what was it, stars and scrubs, right? Mm-hmm. And you spent a lot of time talking about okay, you got to have the scrubs not getting hurt, if you will, and then being able to step in. But when it comes to PFF WAR, you got a lot of guys on this Rams team that are very high on that ranking list. And so, I hear you with the scrubs and everything, but the stars for the Rams seem to be some of the biggest difference makers.
They're shining bright.
Yeah, they are shining bright. There it is. That's, you know what? Hey, you want my IFB? You can host next time.
Yeah, the Rams are second this year in wins above replacement generated by the roster. They're second this year in wins above replacement generated by last year they were non-quarterbacks on the roster. This year they're first, right? And so it was the perfect team to sort of stick a good quarterback in. And this year, among the top 4 players in PFF WAR, 3 of them are Rams. If you look up here, Aaron Donald over a win above replacement, which is just bananas for a defensive player.
That's crazy.
Cooper Kupp, the most valuable wide receiver in the NFL at .82. And then you have Jalen Ramsey, the most valuable defensive back in the NFL at .76. This is what you needed if you were the Rams and you wanted to win a Super Bowl with this approach.
Otherwise, it's just scrubs.
Yeah, well,
you need
that's
the stars
right?
to offset the scrubs.
And think about that. When we contrast this with what we just talked about with the Bengals, if Chidobe Awuzie gets hurt in this game, they're throwing a guy who started NFL games in to play cornerback. If Jalen Ramsey gets hurt for the Rams, good night, right? So that's kind of the approach where and the Rams again were sort of shooting the moon with this roster, but they've totally done it, and they deserve a lot of credit, and they deserve credit for again keeping these guys healthy, but also building a system that complements these guys and makes them great. Again, like I said, I think this was the thing that they made a gamble on this in a season where not a lot of great teams in the NFL. They decided they were going to be the one great team, and it's worked so far.
So let's get into breakdowns on both sides of the ball here. We're going to look at the Rams offense, Bengals defense, Rams defense, and then we're going to look at some of those matchups. And I want you guys to get involved in this conversation as well. Kendall's going to be checking out your YouTube comments, and we're going to be posing the question as we kind of go through these things, what's the biggest difference maker? And the first, we're going to talk about Rams offense and Bengals offense. So I want to know from you guys who you are having the most faith in, whether it is something that you're going to see on the Bengals side of things, with the receivers or Joe Burrow or the running game, or what Stafford's about to do with Kupp and all that. Let us know what the biggest difference maker is for both of these offenses and where you think the change is going to be. As you can see on the screen right now, you can see the PFF grades that we have for both of these teams. Hey, offensively and passing grade, Bengals, they look great. Rushing grade, Bengals look great. Blocking grades, not so great. So, Sam, how do you think that Bengals offensive line is going to hold up one last game here against the Rams to maybe do it? Can they do it?
Well, yeah, the first thing is hold up one last game as if they've been holding up the last couple of games. This is the thing, right?
You need a little bit.
The right side of that Bengals offensive line has been an absolute turnstile for the entire postseason. They got sacked 9 times. Joe Burrow got sacked 9 times against Tennessee. He was under more pressure the week before against the Raiders. It just didn't matter because when he was under pressure, he made some incredible plays. Chris Jones, there's the play where he got out of a sack by Jones twice in the same play. Another example of Burrow has been walking this tightrope where he has been getting buried by pressure, but has been able to make plays. Now, that can happen, and it can happen for a while. Eli Manning in 2011 was under pressure basically from start to finish that season. Played out of his mind, won a Super Bowl. You can carry the Lombardi Trophy off at the end of it, but it is an absolute gamble every single week. Jeffrey Simmons wrecked this offensive line. Chris Jones, I think, is a better player overall than Jeffrey Simmons. He gave it some problems. Aaron Donald, as we've just talked about, is in a completely different world to either of those two guys. Donald on his own has the capacity to ruin this game for Cincinnati, because whether it's Hakeem Adeniji, whether it's Jackson Carman, neither one of those guys can block Aaron Donald. Last week, or 2 weeks ago in the AFC Championship game, they rotated those guys a little bit. Neither one of them came out of that game with a PFF pass blocking grade above 1.8. This is a 0 to 100 scale.
What?
1.8.
That would be a bad GPA on a 4 scale.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, it would.
I didn't realize it was that bad.
So, and now one of those guys, or both of them, has to block Aaron Donald.
But this is where again I think that the Zach Taylor thing has to come up, right? Because he has at times done the thing. I remember week 17 where we talked about Chiefs Bengals, and we said, look, the only way the Bengals win this game is if they're aggressive. They might lose it by 30 being aggressive, but they're not going to win it being conservative. And they went ahead and the AFC Championship game, they actually, basically on offense, should have lost the game. Early down runs to Mixon, 2nd and 9 plays. As you said, Burrow, converting third downs he never should have converted. Now, that defensive line for the Chiefs has 1.5 good players. This one, we add Floyd into the mix and Von Miller and Gaines. This has 4 good players on it. So, to me, and this is where I'm going to bet in the props market as well, Zach Taylor's got to exchange the Joe Mixon runs for Joe Mixon passes on early down. And all the Burrow over attempts, completions, all those props have to be in play, because, to me, I don't think you win by trusting your offensive line to block players and get to 2nd and 6.
And I think
it's a non-starter for me.
Yeah, I think screens should be huge for them in this game. Their 2 weeks between the championship game and now should have been spent doing nothing other than figuring out how you neutralize, trick, confuse Aaron Donald and Von Miller and Leonard Floyd, and just figure out ways of having them not in the game, because you're not going to be able to just drop back and pass deep down the field. Those guys are going to murder you. So screens over their head, short passes, RPOs, anything that will try and take them out of the game and just get the ball beyond them quickly.
But you can't do that from a position of weakness. On offense, you cannot allow yourself to get the long yardage situations, because then we've seen the Rams are so good at this. They'll overload one side of the field. They'll put Donald on the edge, and they'll put somebody more explosive, or not more explosive, but a smaller guy on the interior. They'll do stuff like that. And that is on 3rd and 7. When you get into 3rd and 7, you can't do any of those things.
Yeah.
So to me, if you're the Bengals, it's got to be the quick stuff on early downs. You take advantage, and they're the one team. They're one of the teams. When you look at how it matches up, if the Rams want to take Ramsey and put him on Chase is going to win half of those. And then you still have T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd against, I think, players who are worse than them. If they want to go Ramsey on Higgins because of body size, then Chase has got a mismatch and Boyd has a mismatch. So to me, that's the one place where you look at the Bengals and say, this is a matchup where they actually have a chance. They just have to be able to overcome their penchant. Both of these teams, both the Rams and the Bengals, were running the ball too early, on early downs too much.
Those are all the key matchups, but we're betting some props here.
Yeah.
Samaje Perine, his total rushing receiving yards, I think, is like a 13 and a half. I agree with you. Mixon should be getting these passes, but all year long, Perine actually has been their third down back. If they're down, in 2-minute drills, it's Perine, which is weird because at Oklahoma, it was Mixon getting those, touches, but it's the way it is. So Samaje Perine, friend of yours, Ben Brown, is telling me to take the over on his total yards, and I tend to agree, Eric.
Yeah, I think the thing is Perine is very predictable. It's Mixon on 1st and 2nd down. It's Perine on 3rd down in long yardage situations. He made the big play against the Chiefs. You can't coach your bets, but if I'm coaching the Bengals, I am throwing to the running back on early downs, and if that's the case, it's Mixon. I don't even want to get to 3rd down. To the point that Sam, when you were talking about the Chiefs' offense, it was like they were so bad on 3rd downs, and yet they still scored a bunch in the first half. Yeah. They didn't even get to 3rd down. That's got to be the goal for the Bengals' offenses. Don't even get in these situations where Perine is on the field.
Kendall, what's the results from YouTube? What are they saying about the Rams' offense versus Bengals' offense? What are we thinking here with the best offense?
Yeah, I feel like we have a lot of Bengals fans here today because it's 59% Bengals offense to 41% Rams offense.
Wow.
So I feel like we've got a lot of Cincinnati fans, but it's good. No, it's good. I think one question that kept coming up, and Josh brought it up, is Joe Burrow the number one difference maker today? And if Jalen Ramsey is on Chase, right, is it going to be T. Higgins that really is a breakout star today?
What do you guys think? That's another topic that we could get to. Let's stick on offense. And the next thing that I wanted to talk about, at least at some point, is truly that Burrow versus Stafford comparison, because these two quarterbacks, they don't go up against each other, right? It's always weird when it says, quarterback versus quarterback. But in the realm of who's the most important player here, what it could mean if this guy plays bad, or if this guy, what you expect the middle ground to be, how are you guys approaching this quarterback matchup right here between Burrow and Stafford?
It is fascinating. I mean, they're both quarterbacks, right? So they're both the most important player in this game for either side. Sure. It is really interesting, though, that Stafford is, towards the end of his career, more than a decade into this thing. He's finally sort of showing the play through the playoffs that had been missing in his Detroit career. Joe Burrow is 2 years into this. He's coming already off a devastating knee injury, wins Comeback Player of the Year, and yet you would have more confidence in him not to implode than Matthew Stafford. Mm-hmm. Like, Stafford has played fantastically in the postseason, but in each of the last 2 games has thrown the ball right to the defense once.
Now,
he threw it to the Bucs in the back of the end zone. They didn't come up with it. It was early in the game, so nobody even remembers it. Threw it, except you. Threw it deep to Jaquiski Tartt late in that game that could have absolutely
where was he going with that ball?
Exactly, which is how all of Stafford's interceptions or credible turnover-worthy plays happen, right? There's no logic
of which there are a lot. He led the NFL in interceptions this year.
And late in the year had a bunch of games with multiple turnover-worthy plays. I think he had 3 games in the season with 4 or more. But Burrow has never had a game this year with 4 or more. Stafford has 3 of those games. Burrow's only been over 2 once.
Has anybody pressed Burrow on the throwaway? What was it?
Yes, that's what I was thinking. That was just as egregious.
I think that's obviously a little bit more of an outlier than what we've seen from Stafford all year long. But it is still the strangest. Yes. That might be the strangest throw of the season. Because he's not even throwing it to anybody. He's just like
the drive after he got picked before. Not as bad of a throw.
No, you're right.
If Stafford makes those 2 mistakes back to back, I think we're giving him a good amount of crap. But no, whole season, I think we can all agree Burrow has been the better passer. But it kind of goes back to Sam's original point there about the offensive line, because that's what's going to make or break it. You look at Stafford versus Burrow. Burrow wins almost everything, but when you look at the offensive performance, EPA, you start to see the Rams take the lead, and I think it's because just what we've seen with the pressure to sacks. We, PFF, we track what quarterbacks, their percentage of pressures that turn to sacks. The only 2 quarterbacks worse than Joe Burrow this year, Zach Wilson and Baker Mayfield. If I just told you guys it's Zach Wilson, Baker Mayfield, and Joe Burrow, you would know that's not good, and the fact that they now have to deal with this against Von Miller, Aaron Donald, tied for first in pressures in the playoffs. That's a problem.
Well, that's the paradox, right, with Burrow, because Burrow, when he gets the ball off, you saw his passer rating 9 points better than Stafford when he throws the ball under pressure, right? But obviously that doesn't take into account, that's why EPA is important, that doesn't take into account the sacks, and that doesn't take into account fumbles and things like that. However, I do think in this matchup there are 2 things where I believe that it turns it in Burrow's favor. The first one is the Rams disguise coverages more than any team in the NFL. And it's gone down a little bit since the safeties have been hurt, but they disguise coverages 7% more than any team in the NFL, right? Joe Burrow is the 2nd highest graded quarterback when teams don't disguise coverages. Brady's first, another team that they beat in the playoffs, and Kyler Murray's 3rd, another team they beat in the playoffs. Joe Burrow is the highest graded quarterback in the NFL when a team disguises coverage, meaning whatever he's doing, he's able to detect that better than anybody else and able to make plays. The thing with Stafford, what was the thing that took down Mahomes 2 weeks ago? It was the 3-man rush. Against 3-man rushes, Matthew Stafford is a 29th graded quarterback in the NFL. Against 4-man rushes, he's 15th, and against 5 or more, he's 4th, right? So this is, I think that the 2 matchups here, even though Stafford and the offense for the Rams is better than the offense for the Bengals, I think the matchups, and football is such a matchup game, plays to Joe Burrow just slightly more than Stafford.
And Stafford's PFF grade is also so much lower when you disguise coverage versus when you don't, right? So there is a very clear game plan for Cincinnati on defense to combat Matthew Stafford.
You feel like you'd see it in practice a lot.
Which is,
right? Which is because the Rams do it so much.
And some of this is noise, but some of this I think is a very, yes, you're right. Like, there's a very clear game plan, and there's 2 weeks in advance for this, right?
And to me, like, you can almost predict the outcome of this game based off one number, which is how many times Matthew Stafford puts the ball in harm's way. If it doesn't happen in this game, if he has 0 turnover-worthy plays, the Rams win, and they probably win in a pretty big landslide. But if he has 1, I think the Rams still win, and it's close. If he has more than 1, That's how the Bengals win this game.
I'm going to ask Trevor a question here. What, as a Tampa Bay fan, what haunts your dreams? There are two plays that
Tom Brady retiring.
No, as somebody who bet on Tampa Bay against the Rams, there are two plays that haunt my dreams. What are they?
Obviously, the last one where you blitz at the very end.
Yes.
And then I don't know.
There was the sack by Vita Vea that turned it into 2nd and 20 or whatever.
Okay.
And then there was the blown coverage on cut for the touchdown to make it 17-3 or whatever.
Yeah.
The Bengals have to watch the Rams and say, how do the Rams beat other teams? They beat the other teams with explosive plays, right?
Oh, sure.
What does it build? Yeah. It plays right into the Cincinnati Bengals, what they want to do, which is make Matthew Stafford throw 10 passes in a drive without making a mistake.
Yep.
Because that, to me, is just a statistically better play than making him throw 170 yards in the air perfectly, which he's perfectly capable of. We've seen him over and over and over.
Yep.
That, to me, again, that's part of the matchup advantage here, where the Rams have done such a good job of being explosive this year, and Kupp is a big part of that. And the Bengals, I think by design, they're not great at taking away successful plays, but they could be great at taking away explosive ones.
Kendall, what was the final results of Burrow or Stafford? What are the people saying? I'm guessing because they were Bengals on offense. When you just go quarterbacks, it's probably going to be Burrow.
Yeah, 72% Burrow to 28% Stafford. I think the comment that stood out the most was, if Stafford has to go the length of the field for a game-winning drive, he will screw it up. He is not as clutch.
Did you write this on your phone before you talked? Was that you? Are you a burner in the chat? Are you just kind of like stuffing the ballots here? All right, let's go over to the defense side of the ball. That's enough on the offense. Rams defense versus Cincinnati Bengals defense. And again, they're not going head up, but with these two quarterbacks being capable of winning this game on their arms, this is how they're matching up when it comes to PFF grades, okay? Not a great run defense grade from the Bengals, but as we saw, I mean, the Rams aren't really a team that's going to press them there, but just grades overall, clearly on the Rams side of things. And so that kind of goes into the conversation. I want to hear from everybody in the chat as well who you have more faith in, because where you can point to the stars of the Rams, they are certainly a lot higher. They are shining brighter, as Ian said. But the Bengals collectively as a defensive unit have played well, have got them here. They have played better than I think a lot of their, name recognition would say. Do you guys agree with that? Or what do you think about this defense going up against another defense?
Yeah, like the Bengals defense is not as good as the Rams defense, but I think they have that very clear game plan available to them that will say we can play better in this game than our overall grade and our overall performance for the season. There is a specific game plan that they can trot out that will combat Stafford and the Rams, which will probably make them look better.
I'm curious. You've said before that run defense is kind of a choice. Like, the guy put enough guys into the box and all that, maybe it's not a great idea. So when Cam Akers is averaging 2.6 yards per carry, he's our single worst graded running back on the year. But you look at it, and they've played San Francisco twice, the Buccaneers, the Cardinals, the Ravens. When you see that 20th ranked Bengals run defense, could that be the missing piece? I know it's not going to decide the game. Yeah. I'm not trying to say that.
No, I think it's a very natural question. Here's the thing, and you're right. I mean, against the run, the Bengals are 23rd in the NFL in EPA allowed per play. I think it's even worse if you look at early downs. But they're still giving up, and expected points added is one of those things where if it's positive, you're getting closer to scoring on a play. If it's negative, you're getting further away. The Bengals against the run are giving up negative 0.8 expected points added per run play, meaning the average run in the NFL is bad, and the Bengals are just giving up just slightly better than bad, but still bad, right? Still worse than.
What a sentence. Yeah. No sentence has ever been more PFF than that right there.
So the EPA per pass play against the Bengals is negative 0.02, meaning passing plays are getting further away from the end zone against the Bengals. That's 9th in the NFL. So just think about that difference. Teams that run against the Bengals have a worse time than they pass, but they have a better time than against almost every other team in the NFL. So I think to your point, like the Rams might see this and say, oh, this is actually a bad run defense, and be enticed into still doing something that's bad, right? And I think, Akers is kind of the interesting one. We're going to talk about his prop in a second here, but like it's the weakness of that offense is them looking at Cam Akers, a second-round pick out of Florida State, a guy who's done one of the most impressive athletic feats we've seen in a long time, which has come back from an Achilles injury in months rather than a year.
Nuts.
And they're overlooking the fact that he's, averaging less than a yard per carry before contact, and not even all that impressive after it either. And if they look at the Bengals defense and say, that's what we want to do, I think that plays right into the Bengals' hands.
Let's stick with Akers, because this is such a good story, and I don't want to, shit on the guy for coming back from an Achilles this quick, but we also need to look at what's going on. It's like same thing with Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah. And how many terrible picks can we see this guy throw? And it's like, well, he did mess his knee up.
But that's where you find that's where you find an edge in betting and stuff like that. Is you take the media stories that everybody loves and you kind of find what the truth actually is, and the truth might not be popular, but the truth of the matter is Cam Akers kind of stinks right now.
Tinfoil hat over here.
Anything shy of that defense giving up 7 yards per carry, if they can entice the Rams into running, it's a great thing for the Bengals defense. Like, you would absolutely rather Cam Akers be getting 25 carries in this game versus any number of additional targets going to Cooper Kupp. Like, that is what should be terrifying to you. And, the Chargers kind of played with this line all the way through the season where, you're inviting teams to run. On the other hand, you're so bad at it, it's actually bad.
It's not that bad for them.
Exactly. And the Cardinals against the Rams in the playoffs were that bad, right? Where your run fits are so disastrous, you're giving up these huge plays, and it's not an effort for them to run the ball all day and actually pick up yards and keep the drive moving.
It also helped that the Cardinals didn't cross the 50 for 3 quarters.
Right.
Like that, that all this companion piece, which is to bleed this game out. If you're the Bengals, bleed it out. Give up 4 or 5 yards at a time running the football, but make a stop on 3rd down and stuff like that. That is only a good formula if your offense puts up 20 points. That's the companion piece.
So what about a specific matchup here? This is the headline matchup. Jamar Chase versus Jalen Ramsey. And I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear from you guys in the chat. Who you think is going to get the better of this matchup? It's not always going to be Jamar Chase lined up against Jalen Ramsey. I don't think every snap's going to be that. I think they're going to switch it up. But Ramsey has said this week, as you would expect him to say, 1, he thinks he's the best corner in the game. Duh. 2, he said, whenever I'm lined up man against Jamar Chase, I plan on handling him. But we also know that that's not always how the Rams roll, right? The Rams run a lot of cover 3. They run a lot of quarters. They're not built to just completely shift Ramsey. You go shadow him all game long. What do you think about this matchup, Sam?
I don't think we're going to see much of it. I mean, that's the thing, right? In theory, this is one of the most blockbuster one-on-one matchups you could have in the entire NFL. One of the best wide receivers in the league, a guy that's been shocking people by how dominant he's been, right? Elite NFL corners have rolled in there going, I can cover Jamar Chase, and just been torched, absolutely burned. And Jalen Ramsey, who in this new role playing the slot has been absolutely incredible. The best year he's had since that 2017 Jacksonville season. They don't really track Jalen Ramsey on receivers. And the only times they do it is if the offense has one elite receiver and then other guys you don't care about, right? The Bengals don't have that. They have Jamar Chase. They also have T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. I just don't think they're going to track him, which means the only time you're going to see them matched up is the few occasions where Jamar Chase is lined up in the slot opposite Jalen Ramsey.
And he earns a target, which is going to be a negative thing in the case of Ramsey statistically.
There's only been 5 receivers to get this shadow treatment over the past 2 years. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett usually spending most time in the slot. Devontae Adams, we know Green Bay doesn't have anyone. Mike Evans when the whole team was hurt. Justin Jefferson when Adam Thielen was hurt. Deebo Samuel in week 18, but then not again in the playoffs. So Jacksonville, Jalen Ramsey, he's tracking your number 1 all over the place. But in this matchup, maybe it does make more sense to put him on a T. Higgins or just let him play everywhere. Because
that was always a
name we haven't said yet, Tyler Boyd, always pretty good.
Always pretty good. And that was always the thing that Belichick was doing, right? You remember the Super Bowl against the Falcons where it was they put Logan Ryan over the top. They put Logan Ryan singled up on Julio Jones, played a safety over the top, and then they had, I think it was Malcolm Butler, take on one of the other guys and win those sort of matchups. I think to me, the statistical play is to put him on Higgins because, T. Higgins, the Chiefs held Chase to 54 yards. It was Higgins that killed him the whole game. And Higgins offers so much in terms of catching the ball, yards after the catch. And then Boyd has been a very good, if we want to talk about props, Boyd has been a boomer bust kind of guy, a 19 yards guy or a 85 yards and a touchdown guy. I think that this is the one place where they have to be really careful about what they they do, because if they put Ramsey on Chase is going to win half those matchups, right? It doesn't eliminate him.
Minimal. I mean, there's always the risk as well that he wins most of the matchups, and then you're just
right.
screwed.
Like Steve, it's one of those where like people would be like, oh yeah, just match him up against Steve Smith. It's like, oh, good luck, and then Higgins and Boyd win their matchups against lesser players. Like, they got to be careful.
All right, Kendall, tell us, what do the people think? Ramsey versus Chase. Who are people taking today?
62% Jamar Chase. Ooh. 38% Jalen Ramsey. We've got Bengals fans here. They're with Austin.
Wow,
the city is buzzing.
That's true. The city is buzzing. The chat is buzzing.
Austin's at a bar downtown. Austin's at a bar downtown. Sits there. He's like, hey, can you put up PFF live
he's
show?
He's screaming at everybody to get in the chat right now, which we appreciate you, Austin, for pumping the views up a little bit. Okay, we talked offense. We talked defense. Let's talk head coaches. You mentioned kind of Zach Taylor's tendencies a little bit, and I do think that definitely goes into it, right? Super Bowl is kind of its own beast here, right? You have these 2 weeks to prepare. You have these 2 weeks to think and overthink the whole time. Sean McVay already been here once, right? But he had the stinker of the game, which they scored 3 points against the Patriots, right? And so, like, he was this offensive genius. They score 3 points, but he's already been here and he's had his stinkers. Zach Taylor here for the first time, probably overachieved if we're being honest with it. But what do you think about the head coach matchups here with these two guys? I mean, we got rumors swirling, and if McVay wins it, he's going to retire, get himself a cushy broadcasting career. Like, all of this noise and all of what we've seen over the last year for McVay, for Zach Taylor. What are you guys thinking about this head coach matchup?
I mean, I think this is one where McVay's clearly the better coach. I've been talking, the analogy is McVay is the best here at picking up pennies, quarters, nickels off the ground. And then he avoids picking up some dollar bills, right? So some props I like for this game. I like the Rams to be the first team to take a timeout. I like the Rams to be the first team to challenge a play.
You are a degenerate. Holy
just
cow.
Because I think
where do you even find these things?
You have no idea. Watching this man operate over the last week on Radio Row has been a true privilege.
You gotta set your browser to private just to bet games out here.
Well, but I think, and that's I think the analogies make sense, right? Like, if Zach Taylor just doesn't make the mistakes that Sean McVay sometimes makes, I think he can even the scoreboard, even though I think McVay's a much better coach.
Let me put something to you, right? Sean McVay is a better coach up until today, right? And from today onwards, like up until game time, up until the whistle blows and the first kick goes, Sean McVay is clearly a better coach than Zach Taylor. But from the moment that whistle blows and we have actual game time, Zach Taylor might be less inclined to screw it up from that point.
Yeah, and that's the point. And again, I think, the Bengals did such a good job in-game adjusting against the Chiefs. They did such a good job of not making those crucial errors against Kansas City. And again, just staying on the green and allowing, to me, the marriage between McVay and Stafford is very equal. Like, both men need to be on their game for the whole to be bigger than the sum of the parts. I think with Taylor, to his credit, he knows that, like, this is a Joe Burrow run operation. And as long as he sort of stays out of the guy's way, I think that's his best trait, is he knows to stay out of the guy's way in most cases.
I think that you are right. That's the formula. But this game is different. Like, this game clearly just does things mentally to coaches that make geniuses out of some coaches, and it makes, like, unbelievably terrible decisions out of some others. And there is a real chance that we watched for most of the season Zach Taylor kind of get in his own way. Now, as of late, to his credit, it has been more of leaving the ball in Joe Burrow's hands. But I'm worried because you talked about it against Kansas City. It reared its ugly head a little bit where he kind of went back and got conservative. And the lights are brighter now more than ever. If he keeps his foot on the gas pedal, if he keeps the ball in Joe Burrow's hands, Bengals obviously have a shot to win this. But if he doesn't, if for whatever reason, if the game plan doesn't go exactly the way that it should, and all of a sudden he grabs it back and he goes, no, we're slowing down the game, we're slowing it down, we're gonna lose, but not by very much. We're not gonna get blown out. That's what worries me. Not because I think that he doesn't know that as a coach, but because the Super Bowl is just a manipulative game. You sit here for 2 weeks and you think and you overthink, and I don't know. I wonder if Sean McVay got that out of his system. Not that he's not capable of doing it again, but Zach Taylor's never been here, essentially. Kendall, what's the chat been saying with Zach Taylor and Sean McVay?
It's pretty much equal, right? It's the same thing that you were saying. It's half and half. We didn't run a poll for that one, but it is half and half. That it's
which is a massive landslide for Sean McVay if you adjust for the Bengals.
Exactly, for all the Bengals fans in here, that's what we're saying.
That first Super Bowl, though. I mean, it was a Rams team that shouldn't have been there if the refs were doing their job in New Orleans in the first place. They had Jared freaking Goff.
But this is a 4 seed. This Rams team's a 4 seed. Like, they're not supposed to be here either.
What are the Bengals, a 6?
4. They're both 4.
Oh, they're
first time in NFL.
Oh, yeah, right, because they hosted.
But like, if Tampa's if Antonio Brown doesn't flake out on the Bucks and Godwin doesn't get hurt and the offensive line is healthy.
If McCourty doesn't make that crazy play to get back into the back of the end zone, maybe the Rams tie it up. We can play this all day.
That's like
I agree.
Every Super Bowl, though.
Or if Kyle Shanahan goes for a godforsaken 4th down. This is a different matchup. This
if
is
the NFL overtime rules were different, Josh Allen would be here.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like we are and this is where I like trying to, because I didn't think McVay coached a great NFC Championship game, but like we're a Kyle Shanahan blunderfest away from all of Chris Collinsworth's like nightmares coming into play in a Bengals 49ers rematch part 3. Like this is a weird season, right? Like a weird season where a lot of stuff went right for the Rams to be here.
I agree with you that I think there's a very big chance that Zach Taylor tightens up, gets too conservative, starts running the ball as hard as ever on first down, and that is a problem for Cincinnati. The one difference, though, is I think if he does that, Joe Burrow can still fix it. Like, it becomes harder.
He can't. You are right.
It becomes harder, and he's facing 3rd and 12 instead of, 3rd and short, but Joe Burrow can still offset all of that if Joe Burrow has an incredible game. But with Sean McVay, the thing that he's been bad at throughout his career is adjusting once somebody shows up with a game plan that neutralizes what he wants to do in the first place, right? The first Super Bowl is a perfect example of that. Belichick rolls in there, it's like, it's quarters. That's not what they were supposed to be running. What do we do now? I don't know. And the whole thing. They get no points out of it, right? Like, if that happens in this game, and we've just talked about it, there is a game plan to stop what they're doing. Yeah. Does he have the adjustment? And if he doesn't, like, that's the recipe for Stafford just pitching, like, gimme turnovers to the Bengals all game long, because that was the original game plan.
Paying a tribute to the Detroit Lions.
Homage.
Detroit Rams.
Detroit Rams.
We're going to dig into a lot of betting lines. I know Eric's salivating at this, getting to the end of the show, talking about how you should exactly bet this game. Before we get to it, got to talk to you about our friends over at Pristine Auction. This is your go-to place for signed sports memorabilia. No matter what you're looking for, whether it's a certain player, whether it's a certain team, a jersey, a helmet, whatever, it's all auction style, so you can get some real steals for some great stuff. If you go to their website, pristineauction.com, sign up, use the promo code PFF, and you're going to get $10 off whatever the first auction is that you win. Not just the first one that you bet on. It'll be whatever the first one is that you win. Go check them out, pristineauction.com, your go-to place for signed sports memorabilia. Eric, you can tell me if this line is still good, but I see -4 for the LA Rams. Is that still where we're at here officially with this game?
It depends on the book. I know Pinnacle has at 4.5, trending towards 5, but I think, it's all I'll say is it's not going to get to 3.5. I don't think there's going to be people, betting this and over. It's already up to 49. I think you're gonna. We had Johnny Amarulo, the guy who runs the DraftKings Sportsbook, on the PFF forecast while we were in Radio Row, and he thinks it's going to close around 50. All the rubes coming in, betting the over, moving that number higher. So if you do like over, take it now. If you like under, wait a little bit.
Is over late like an emotional bet though? Like, isn't that like, screw it, quarterbacks, I want to see some points, 100%. I'm going to throw some money on the line.
100%. I mean, and I think usually the favorite is like that too. So like people will be like, oh yeah, that offensive like they'll finally come to what we've come to since Monday last week, which is like the O-line for the Bengals sucks, so they're going to come in and hammer the favorite. That's usually a case too. But yeah,
thanks for taking away my explanation for the game picks, by the way.
Okay, but anyway, yeah. So that's where the number is. I think.
Get wrecked. Get absolutely wrecked.
I think that the number's beaten into place so much that everything's a coin flip at this point.
You've been like so hip deep in the most obscure props in the world. Does this feel like finger painting now? We're talking about just the line.
Yeah, I mean, like
the over under.
Here's the thing:
bored.
Yeah,
I mean, look at the limits on this
Give
game.
me something interesting.
This is great, but give me a TikTok of the anthem, please. That's where the real money's to be.
Tell me how many ice cubes are going to be in the container that they dump on the coach.
Yeah. So I think Bengals are probably the right side against the spread, but the last time a team was an underdog and covered but didn't win was Arizona, I think, in 2008. So usually you just pick the winner of this game, don't care about the points, but I think the Rams win a close game. And the Bengals will cover them.
I was going to say, Bengals have covered 7 straight games.
Yeah.
7 straight. So, I mean, for this number,
they even covered when Brandon Allen started. They even covered when they're a cover machine.
That's almost like our chance, the Coastal Carolina. You know, that's like that version of it. Just an absolute cover machine. We're looking at against the spreads here. Bengals 13-7 against the spread. Rams 10-10 against the spread. So books have had the Rams pretty evenly, but it seems like the Bengals have really been a team to overcome that. Let's get into our picks. Ian, do you want me to start with you, or you want to go last here? Do you want
Rams 31, Bengals 13. Sorry, Cincy.
Okay, and your explanation is so you can put your own spin on it.
I want to be that,
Killjoy.
Yeah. After I have 4 beers shortly after this show, I'm going to be basically reciting exactly what Eric just said. The offensive line, too many problems. It's Aaron Donald and Von freaking Miller. We're not facing, all due respect to Jeffrey Simmons and all these other guys.
All due respect.
New monster. We're facing Bowser in the 3rd Bowser. This is not the 1st or 2nd one in Mario Castle. Final boss. This is a problem. I think Stafford can put up enough points to make it tough.
Here's what I'll say. The Rams. So this is weird to say because there have been a ton of teams that have made the Super Bowl early on, like Dan Marino, for example, never makes it back, right? The Bengals are sort of on this situation where I think if they lose, no one's going to say, well, what a big failure for the Bengals. I think everybody believes Joe Burrow will be back, no matter whether that's true or not. The Rams kind of still need to win this game to validate 100%. All of their moves.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And the NFC, luckily, I think is going to be weaker next year for them, so they still will be around, I think. But this is their one chance, and this is the validate everything situation for them. And I feel like the way the NFL goes, that means they're going to lose.
There is an absolute metric ton of pressure on the Rams. Everybody at the Rams, like you said, they still need to justify the moves they've made. For Matthew Stafford, it's like, yeah, you've won some playoff games, but that was never really the point. The point was people claiming you're this elite quarterback that's been dragged back by the Lions. You still need to win this to prove that you are. The McVay got there and imploded the last time. He needs to show up and show that if I'm going to be this boy genius head coach, I actually need to win the game that I'm supposed to win as a favorite in the Super Bowl. So ultimately, I agree with Eric that I think that will make them tighten up and choke. And to me, this game is going to be an ugly, low-scoring game.
So you're with me, your Bengals +4?
No, I think the Rams are still better. I still, top to bottom, if Stafford doesn't implode, and by implode I mean 3 or 4 balls where he's just YOLO straight to a safety.
Almost fell out of the chair there.
No, I got it covered. Okay. As long as he doesn't do that, the Rams win this game. And if he doesn't implode, I think there's just too much about them to cover 4. I think they'll win 24-17, something like that.
I'm taking Cincinnati getting 4 points. I think the Rams win this game.
Coward.
There's too many things that go in the Rams' direction for me to not think that the Rams win this football game. But Joey Burrow getting 4 points. I'm not about to lay it. I'm not gonna get him off of this 4 points. I think that even if the Rams start off playing really, really well, I can't remember who made this point. It's Joe freaking Burrow. We have seen this multiple times this year.
We've seen it with the Rams.
Against
the Bucks.
Which way? You're saying that they had a lead.
They get out a lead and then they start running. They fall in love with Cam Akers. That's ultimately
why I think that I think the Rams win the game. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not laying the point. I'm taking Burrow in the points. Give me Cincinnati +4.
The Bengals have already erased a 21-3 lead against a great team, right? Or a great quarterback, at least. I don't think the Chiefs are a great team. And we've already seen the Rams choke away a lead like that. I mean,
look at how they did it. They fumbled the ball 3 times. They just started throwing the ball.
I present to you my case. I mean, they were running the ball. They basically said, Cam Akers, you get the last 2 quarters of this game.
If they do,
if they do that, that's the opening that Joe Burrow needs.
But if they do that, the opening was not running the ball. The opening was the multiple fumbles out of running the ball.
I disagree with that, though. I mean, the Bucks had a 4th down that should have been overturned because of penalty. They called the penalty, the ball hit the ground, all that stuff. The Bucks And there were they were helped out by the turnovers for sure, but they also took it from the Rams at the very end as well.
But if he doesn't fumble the second time, that comeback never gets completed.
It's a week-to-week league.
It is a week to week. It's turnover to turnover. Okay, so you're taking the Rams to cover.
Yes.
You're taking the Rams to
big.
cover.
Yep.
Big.
Wow. We're taking Cincinnati in the points, right? Yep. Kendall, what are the people taking? What are the people taking here? What's the percentage?
All right. Bengals, 51%.
Wow.
Rams, 49. So it did even itself out there with all the Bengals fans that we thought were in the chats. The Rams believers came in hot.
What about you? What are you taking?
I'm with you and Eric. I'm taking Bengals.
Go!
I got him 4.5. I only say that because Cincinnati hasn't really been able to coast to any of their playoff wins, right? Each one has been decided by one touchdown, except for the Raiders, which was 8 points, right? So I think that the Rams come out hot. They're ahead the whole time. McVay maybe steps on himself a little bit. They come back. I have them 28-24.
Look, we're in Cincinnati. I'm not trying to get jumped later today.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get jumped later today. Let's move on to Prize Picks. This is the time when Eric really can get involved with it. This is when his adrenaline actually gets up. This is how he gets out of bed. This is his fourth cup of coffee, if you will, talking about these prop bets here. Because as we've been doing all year with Prize Picks, we've got 3 over-under prop bets for these players. But of course, because it's the Super Bowl, we've got some other fun prop bets as well. So Kendall, I'm going back to you. You're reading these off for us. What is the first prop bet here that we've got to do over-unders for the Super Bowl?
All right. So first one, Joe Burrow over under 36.5 pass attempts.
Pass attempts? Sam, what do you think? 36.5? Seems like a lot.
It is. If I'm following my logic from earlier, I don't think there's going to be enough offense either way for that number to get higher than that. So I would go under.
All right, he's going under. Ian?
I'm taking over. I was listening to most of what Eric said, and I think he's going to take the over.
Most of it.
Yeah, the over here is impervious to a lot of different things, right? So if the Bengals are going to win this game, they're going to win it by throwing the football.
Correct.
They're going to win it throwing early downs, and they're going to take all those silly Joe Mixon runs. By the way, Joe Mixon this year, first in the NFL in yards gained on not perfectly blocked runs, so he's a tough running back. He might, that's part of their problem, I think. They're going to throw the ball in early downs to win. They're also going to throw if they get behind, a la Kansas City last year, right? And so I think what you want, and this is why betting side in total is not the greatest, you want to bet props that hit in a number of different game states. So Bengals win, I think they win by throwing the ball. Bengals get their asses kicked, I think they have to throw a ton by virtue of that. So I'm going to go over here with Burrow, 36.5 attempts.
I'm going to go over as well. It's a big number, but I think the formula for the Bengals at some point has to be letting Joe Burrow throw his arm out. What's the next one, Kendall?
All right, Jamar Chase over under 27.5 yards longest play.
Oh, wow.
Not reception. We could get some rushes in here. That's
so,
important.
All right, longest play, 27.5 yards. What do we think? That picture is appropriate with him just probably 50 yards down the field going for a one-handed grab. What do we think?
Over. I mean, if the Bengals have been good this year, it's always gone through Jamar Chase. We talked about, I don't think they're going to match Jalen Ramsey up against him, which means he's going to have his pick of guys that aren't as good as him.
Yeah, and I'll take the over. We saw against Tennessee. It's not like he even needs to win on a one-handed Moss down the field. Just throw him a freaking screen. He'll make one guy miss.
Yep.
See you later.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm more of a Boyd Higgins guy today, so I'm going to go under here. Just I obviously, he can make this type of play, but I think that the Bengals might have a great game and Chase might have 40 yards, and it was all part of the plan. TM.
Yeah, I think I mostly agree with what you're saying there. But I do think there is going to be at least one moment, probably at the end of the game. For example, if we go into the matchup believing, let's say they put Ramsey on T. Higgins, like we were talking about before, and they just double chase the whole game, right? If we get to the point where this game is close down the stretch, they're probably going to try to mix and match something, or a safety's going to be looking at somebody else a little bit too much, and I think Jamar Chase gets at least one of these. So I'm going to go with the over here as well. What's the last one?
All right, last one, Cooper Kupp over under 11 targets.
I think you double this number and then still bet over. Yeah, honestly, he might have 11 catches in this game.
Yes.
I don't think the Rams' problem is going to be getting the ball to Kupp. I think it's going to be whether those catches are going to be worth a damn.
And certainly
he's going to get a ton of targets.
And certainly not targeting Kupp. I mean,
unbelievable.
Bengals have already allowed the most receptions to slot receivers. And now you're facing another boss, Cooper freaking Kupp. Give me the over on 11 targets. I'll take the over on 8.5 receptions as well.
Yeah, that one's a plus price prop as well.
I'm going over. I'm going over on this one. They're going to feed Cooper Kupp so much in this game. I think that's obviously going to be their game plan. It's been their bread and butter the whole time. You guys can head over and you can bet these over-under props at Prize Picks as well. Going over to their app or prizepicks.com. If you don't have a login with them, you can do so. Use promo code PFF when you sign up. If you deposit at least $20, you will get yourself a free PFF Edge subscription as well. So if you don't have a subscription at Prize Picks or PFF, you knock both of them out. You can get a little extra money for the Super Bowl prop bets today. And then, of course, you can use your PFF Edge subscription for the rest of the year. So double win there. We're not done with the obscure bets, though. We promised the people that we would get to this. The first one that we're going to, color of the Gatorade bath from the winning coach. Now, we've got the odds here. I believe we've got the full screen of the odds here. Orange is the most likely color, plus 300. And then you got blue right after that. Obviously, that makes sense, right? You've got these two teams. See, this is what pisses me off here, Eric. We were ranting about this. Why in the world is Andy Reid getting doused with orange Gatorade?
Not just that. That one is your opinion, right? Is that the color essentially will match the team that wins, right?
It should.
So the Bengals will have orange, the Rams will have yellow of some description, and yet that photo on the screen right now doesn't back that up. Neither of the photos in the windows behind us back that up.
No. That's the closest. Hold on. That's the closest to green that we've got for the Eagles win.
Okay, so
that one checks out. This one doesn't make any damn sense. I don't understand. I could go to a betting machine and get blue Gatorade, not even have to worry about it.
This is where Trevor's learning how to bet here, though.
It is readily available no matter what. How in the world are we dousing the winning coaches with the wrong color Gatorade?
Don't coach your bet. Would you rather be right or would you rather it be right?
I'd rather be right.
Thank you. So orange plus 300. Look, there are other sharper books that have this at plus 200, like Pinnacle Sports. Go to DraftKings. And as I've been telling people with all this inside information we're getting about the anthem, we're getting about Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, make it count. If you know who's going to do what, make it count.
How?
Because God knows you're flipping coins on Rams.
I'm changing my answer.
4.
I'd rather go to my grave being right personally.
Amateurs want to be right. Professionals want to make money.
Excuse me, but how and why is clear Gatorade even an option? And why are the odds pretty good?
Clear Gatorade's fire.
Wait, clear Gatorade. Wait, is clear Gatorade the highest odds? We got it on the rundown at plus 250.
What the hell is with this?
Glacier Cherry. It's great.
That's not clear. That's like white.
Hold on, we get plus 250 right there. Clear Gatorade.
Maybe that's just like water.
Oh, so it could just be water.
Surely nobody's ever been dunked by water in a Gatorade
Anyway,
bucket.
the bet is orange because Sam Hubbard went on Part of My Take podcast and said the Bengals only use orange. And as we've just talked
about, it's an alternative way to bet on the Bengals money line.
And maybe the Rams have
orange. Maybe. Yeah, you're right. Like that's like I like the way you're thinking.
I'm not.
How do I bet like cucumber lime? You know, like I want the Leicester. No, but I want the specific other. I want the Leicester City winning the EPL odds.
Purple in LA Kobe tribute plus 1400. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm trying to pay my mortgage off of this bet. That's all I'm saying. The other one that everybody likes to talk about, the national anthem. Mickey Guyton is a country music singer.
Say her nickname.
You could say it.
You can say it.
No, you can say it.
Quickie Mickey.
There, I was giving you the over-under on the national anthem.
Is that relevant to the national anthem?
Well, it's a minute.
I've had some bets on this, and this is the first time I've ever seen her.
Okay.
That doesn't shock me.
Great research.
I did some research on this. I did my own independent research on this. Okay, you ready for this? Better Than You Left Me is her hit, right? It's got over 7 million views on YouTube. This is her most viewed song. It is a slow country song, okay? I think that goes into it. She has also sung the national anthem before. And the last time she did National Memorial Day concert in 2021, minute 26, okay? That was the time.
Sure.
Okay.
You ever been to a Memorial Day get together?
My last thing, she did a cover of the song Oh Holy Night, and I watched an interview where she talked about doing the cover, and she said, I didn't want to stretch it out or do anything out of the ordinary because I wanted to make sure that this classic song was sang the way that it was supposed to. Under.
All right, I'm going over. But here's the reason why. We talk all day about it being different. It's different, right? Sometimes what gets you the gig is different than how you perform in the gig, right? With McVay, right, being the great coach, great innovator, great intelligence, all this stuff. Then he gets to the big game and it freezes. Minute Mickey, whatever. Quickie Mickey, Minute Mickey. that looks like somebody who's gonna be a different person in the minors.
She has a phenomenal voice.
Different person in the minors than the majors.
When she gets to the big game and the flyover starts, that's when you get extemporaneous and there's 12 more seconds.
Have any of us wanted to be there for Memorial Day? Like the party with my family.
Hold on. But isn't the whole narrative around a big game that you get a little tighter? That you want to just go quicker, right?
The game slows down when you're elite like that.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, that's okay.
That's when you feel it's when you feel as your part in the big game, you've got to do more. You have to bring more to the table.
It means more.
Her nickname is Quickie Mickey. Why are we still talking about this? Bet the under. And it's a minute 38.
Who gave her this nickname?
She said her friends did because she sings the national anthem fast.
That's the reason? Okay.
That's the actual reason. This isn't hard.
Under?
Yes.
Under.
Over.
I couldn't care less.
No, you don't get to count, Sam. This is the last show.
Flip me a coin.
That's a great segue into what we're about to talk about.
Over.
There it is. All right, heads or tails? It's the last one. What are you doing? Tails.
The book's always, by the way, here's an interesting thing I was
reading
in this book called And Then 1 Year, which is by Chris Andrews, who's a sports book operator in Vegas. He says the books always need tails. Somehow all the squares bet heads. I don't know. How is this a thing? I don't know.
Tails?
Well, I don't. I like to be on the side of the book. Tails.
Heads.
This one's for you, Josh Allen. Tails.
Yeah.
We're going tails on this one. We're letting it be tails. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Josh Allen walked by us on Radio Row. We didn't get him, but we were thinking about asking for 13 seconds of his time.
Oh. You hate to see it.
I'm glad you didn't.
It wouldn't have gone well.
It wouldn't have gone well. It probably would have gone well because Austin's trying to ascend his TikTok game, and he would have immediately just recorded you getting the snot beat out of you just for TikTok.
That would have gone viral.
It actually could have gone well. Kendall, do you have any final thoughts, over unders, Gatorade color, national anthem, heads or tails? What do we got?
Yeah, no, I'm with you guys. I'm with you, Trevor, on all of them. I'll say that. There we go.
I'm in good company.
There we go. People are like, I don't know if I should be allowing my kids to watch this show now because of all the degenerate betting that has become of this show. But that's okay.
What, do they not want their kids to be financially?
No, this is the real world, folks.
Well, what do you go play Call of Duty instead? Are you freaking kidding me? Quickie Mickey. Bet the under.
All right, any final thoughts before we get out of here one last time for the 2021-2022 season?
Just that this has just been a brief snapshot into the window of Eric's last week of existence.
It's really incredible.
USFL, April, Eric and I, podcast, gambling will be talked about.
You guys doing a USFL podcast?
Of course.
Oh, hell yeah. That's going to be fantastic.
Give me Tyler Boyd first touchdown in this game around 20-1 or something. Give me Tyler Boyd.
Whoa.
You betting the house on it?
I mean, no.
Whose house?
My neighbor's house.
Okay, gotcha.
You will bet your neighbor's house for it.
There's some places where you can get 15 to 20-1 at boosters. Go ahead and get yourself some Tyler Boyd first touchdown.
Well,
Tyler Boyd's had a great week, if anybody's noticed.
You probably have. You probably have sources for that. Appreciate everybody watching this final show and all the shows that we've had throughout the season. It has been such a blast. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us every Sunday as we've been previewing all the regular season, postseason games. All up here to the Super Bowl in one final finale. For Sam Monson, for Ian Hartitz, for Eric Eager, for Kendall Valenzuela, I am Trevor Sikkema. Thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy the Super Bowl. We know we'll see you soon. Free agency draft, it's all coming up. We'll see you guys then.